Welcome to how to increase technical support staff for your healthcare simulation program, as well as simulation technical and simulation technology specialist resources. I'm Lance Bailey. So just quick disclosures. I am the founder, owner of the commercial properties healthysimulation.com, which provides free medical simulation resources, including conference coverage, product demonstrations, the latest research highlights, job listings, free newsletters, and more, as well as careersinhealthcare.com, which does have some content on how to become a simulation specialist, either in the administrative, educational, or technical roles. I'm also the founder and chairman of the board of the non-commercial Gathering of Healthcare Simulation Technology Specialists, or simghosts.org, nonprofit 501c3 organization. Most of this presentation has been given through SimGhosts over the past many years around the world. So the learning objectives for today, we're going to explore the reason why SimTechs are an often misunderstood but crucial part of your simulation program success story, learn how to think from your administrator's perspective to gain support for your technical needs, and identify ways to develop simulation techs through SimGhosts and other resources. So just a quick little bit background about myself. Obviously none of us, or many of us, did not come to healthcare simulation through a professional educational degree pathway. There are very few degree pathways out there, few and far between. They do exist in small pockets, but the majority of us came, sidestepped into this vertical industry from other spaces, right? So my background got started in film and digital media production with my bachelor's from UC Santa Cruz. I worked in Hollywood for many years doing all different types of production set work. I then went back to school and became an EMT and a firefighter, which you can see me jumping off the building there. And during that time, I also became a simulation technology specialist for the LA Community College District before I became the founding director of the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas from 2009 to 2012. Which was a joint venture among the three primary healthcare schools from the Nevada System of Higher Education: UNLV School of Nursing, Nevada State College School of Nursing, as well as the third and fourth year students and residents out of the University of Nevada School of Medicine who were sent down to Vegas. So during that time, I also founded and created SimGhosts and HealthySimulation.com, which have both been running now for about 8 years, almost a decade so far. I'm also a PADI rescue diver. So that's kind of a little bit about my background experience, what gives me a unique perspective in terms of not only being a technical staff support person in simulation, but also an administrator and a project, an entrepreneurial project founder, as well as a community organizer and resource distributor. So we need to start this presentation with regards to considering how to increase your simulation staff technical support from the concept of what's in your wallet, right? Administration is really first and foremost focused on dollar bills. How do we budget for everything that we need? How do we allocate when there are constraints put down on top of those administrators from their higher level administrators to make program objectives take place, but don't necessarily have all the funds necessary to do everything that they want, right? And so that comes down to you and your simulation program of how do you support the program in a way that's consistent and provides for expanded support, continued ROI, and demonstrated performance value. So what is in your wallet? Well, Alan Giannakopoulos from Baptist Health South Florida a few years back did a survey of SSH members, specifically simulation lab administrators, and found that over 50% did not have an annualized budget for their simulation program. I know that was a few years ago, but I've, with writing for Healthy Simulation and traveling the world to attend conferences and meeting with simulation champions from around the world, I still find that is a known issue with regards to the simulation champions that I encounter. They suggest to me that they don't have the budgets necessary in an ongoing fashion to be able to support their programs in a consistent and growing manner. And so clearly that is a major problem and concern with regards to achieving the outcomes that are expected. of your program. So where did this money go? Where did the money go that was invested into simulation? Well, it came from grants and maybe donations or other places into shiny new toys, right? The mannequins, the hardware, the AV systems, some skills labs trainers, perhaps a little bit of conference attendance, and was focused there, right? So that's kind of where the money ends up. But how does that really help us for long-term program needs when we've been gifted these or received these items without much consideration for how they are going to continue to move along? So in simulation, what ends up happening is that we start to wear many hats, right? I'm sure those of you that have some experience within the simulation field know that the many job duties as assigned continue to grow. And while that makes for a fun career in terms of the opportunities to continue to learn, it also can be overly stressful and too stressful for you and your staff with regards to expecting to wear many hats and do and perform many roles, right? And so what ends up, let's just take a look at one job description in terms of a demonstration of too many hats. So I'm going to take a deep breath here. The ideal candidate will have the ability to multitask in order to simultaneously and rapidly respond to learners' actions during scenarios and address any issues arising with simulator and medical equipment and audiovisual technologies, and the ability to analyze current curriculum offerings, identify opportunities where simulation is most appropriate, and collaborate with faculty and staff to improve and develop new programs that deliver value and contribute to the financial sustainability. I did it. That's just one example of just how many different knowledge domains are required to be effective in performing simulation duties, right? And so there's clearly a lot going on there, and if administration is not aware of all these responsibilities initially, they will become aware of them over time. As to be effective in operating simulation-based technologies, these are just a few of the things that are required, right? And so that's why more and more hats get put on and placed on initial simulation champions. Then what happens at that point, right? So what's possible outcome from that situation? So you'll get minimal use of the simulation equipment, spaces, and methodologies. You'll have misuse of those areas, or stagnation, where you'll have just nothing going on for quite long periods of time. You'll have perhaps an unbalanced use in single domains, where there'll be increased wear and tear in specific products, equipment, but or systems, but it'll become unbalanced in that those become the primary utilization points, which then end up hurting those products because they're not, or systems, in that they are not being properly utilized against other expected program outcomes. You'll have staff turnover. So educator burnout is suggested at 2 years from many of the vendors that I engage with. They suggest that there's a major issue with regards to simulation staff turnover or educator burnout within 2 years, as they are not receiving the support, the ongoing support that they need, either financially or professionally, from their peers or the administration to continue to do the work that they're doing, and also for simulation technical staff or even administrators themselves from their higher levels of administration. You'll have no standardized training outcomes, right? So you'll have no pathway for an operational plan that enables for simulation to succeed long term, as there's no standard training outcomes, and that means there's no way to demonstrate program ROI. There's no way to demonstrate the return on investment that has been initially made, either with gifted materials or supplies or equipment, or initial investments into people and spaces, because there's no operational plan to maintain, review, and understand how these investments actually are improving learning outcomes or training outcomes, patient safety outcomes over time. So, newsflash, here's what's going to happen to your technology for sure, without a doubt. These are the other things are things that might happen. Here's what for sure is going to happen to your technology if it's not being utilized now when it was recently or readily available and purchased. It will become obsolete. This is an old Apple computer, one of my first ones that my parents had, and you and I would not be utilizing this to take selfies or to even word process, right, or send emails. This computer is obsolete. It's out of date, and it cannot be used in an educational program to teach modern day healthcare learning objectives, right? So all of your equipment in your simulation space is on its way to becoming this, an obsolete piece of technology that is no longer relevant and cannot be used. So, just thinking about the reality of how difficult it is to support the technology staff, individuals, or profession. Here's a list of just one conference for SimGhost over the past, from one of the many SimGhost events that we've run in the past years, of the job descriptions of the individuals that attended that year, right? And so take a look and just see both, from a clinical background or technical background, both were required and had the responsibilities of operating simulation technologies. And here's the range of job descriptions that were involved with regards to the individuals there. So you can understand why you're in a position of difficulty trying to better understand this position, what it does, and how to support it. You're not alone, right? Everyone is in the same boat right now where we are trying to better understand how to accomplish these goals over time. Now, I was a part of a really fantastic resource which is available to you for free through the California Healthcare Work Initiative with the link down there in the lower left-hand corner, californiaca-hwi.org. And under the resources/job analysis tab, there's one for simulation technology specialist and one for simulation program coordinator. And this was a really unique and fun opportunity a few years ago where SimTechs from across California came together for a week to do a collaborative group project of identifying the primary duties, tasks, and responsibilities, as well as the job title for the job of being a simulation technology specialist, right? So this is available for free, and you can download it through that link, and something that's super useful for your group to consider in terms of better identifying some of those things. And the term that group came up with in terms of self-representation was healthcare simulation technology specialist, which is again where SimGhosts got part of its name from. So, what does that kind of cover? Well, here's what a tech can do. Handle IT networks, mannequin programming, mannequin maintenance, AV systems oversight and support, medical product maintenance, computer labs and debriefing systems, simulation lab operations, including scenario setup and teardown, managing sim lab documentation, tracking and utilization. Obviously, this helps to free up educators to focus on learner objectives, learner outcomes. Moulage, increasing the reality of the simulation experiences, managing and ordering supplies, managing lab student workers or volunteers, or perhaps even other technical staff if they have the advanced experience and degrees necessary to do so. Audio video productions for sim lab orientation videos or other training videos, as well as promotional videos for the Sim Center. And crucially, selecting appropriate capital technology equipment. So 80% of the attendees for SimGhosts events say that they have strong to primary influence now over technology-based purchase decisions. And that's because the simulation programs that have invested in technical support have seen over the years that those technology specialists understand which technology components are necessary and available to them to make, or needed, to make the technology work to fit the clinical educator faculty goals with regards to that educational or training program, right? So the technology specialist becomes an important arm of that balance between budget, clinical needs for training purposes, and technological capabilities. As if we all know, if we make the wrong investment in technology and it does not integrate, we will have major problems as well there. So again, that job analysis for SimTech specialist at ca-hwi.org. So you need to start to plan to make the case, right, for towards your administrator with regards to ways that you want to be thinking about improving technical support. So the best way to do that is starting by looking at other labs similar in size and scope to your own. Perhaps it's not one that's a competitive group in your same town or city, but perhaps the next state over, a similarly sized program with the same learners as your own, and reaching out to them and trying to find and learn what are their staff success and failure stories, right? What roads have they gone down to be able to get to the place that they are at now with regards to the performance that they have and the simulation outcomes that they have, and how many staff do they have, and what are the operating budgets to maintain those staff, right? So, this is where we start to think about, yeah, we've got this shiny new car toy, right? But how about paying for gas, maintenance, and accidents that might possibly happen for that shiny new toy, right? So what do other programs do that enable them to succeed at the level that they're at, right? And so if you were to be able to gather 3 or 4 of these backgrounds from similarly sized programs in other states, you start to have some data and some information that's going to be very useful to you when you sit down across from an administrator. Say, hey, listen, here's where we are, here's where others are, here's where we have both agreed that we want to go. Now, how are we going to get there without what others have to achieve those similar aims, right? And so that, in that sense, it helps you to consider your own staff needs and objectives, and also take a look at what has your turnover and knowledge loss been. That's a key consideration for your space and should be a key consideration with regards to your administrators in terms of knowing that it costs money to train and educate people with regards to simulation technology and methodologies. It's very difficult to replace them because there are so few out there. And so once they make that investment, if they don't properly provide for an ongoing support pathway, professionally and financially and operationally and otherwise, then they're going to lose those people. They're going to lose all that investment. They're going to have to start all over, and it's going to keep costing them more money to just get started and get back to a place that doesn't provide for an ongoing support. So, and then start to consider, what are the increased efficiency opportunities? What could you be doing if you just had a few more support pieces to your program that would enable all the investment that's already been made to really kind of accelerate and go to that next level from where it is now? And that comes with part in understanding the real cost of where your program is right now versus where it could be, right? So let's just kind of consider some numbers really quickly, just general case numbers. From Indeed.com, we got some U.S. average salary data. Nurse educator average salary, $92,000, almost $93,000. That does not, of course, there's urban versus rural, there's different experience, but just the average salary of a nurse educator is around $93,000. Professor of medicine is around $153,000. And now if we could just take something that is more general and relates somewhat to a simulation technology specialist, what if we took a look at information technology support technician? You see that number is only down there at 46.5. It can, I would say that this probably 46 to 55 is where the general range falls for simulation technology specialists, up to 70, depending on the degrees, background, and experience. But if we were just to generally look, because the data for SimTechs is few and far between, but we do know what it is for IT support technician, not support technology specialist, but just support technician. So let's put these numbers side by side. So here we have a professor of medicine, a nursing educator, and an IT support person. Now, is your program investing 2 to 3 times as much money to do jobs that require technical knowledge and know-how that perhaps nurse educators or professors of medicine have not spent their background time or energy investing into learning, appreciating, and experiencing as much as someone who has an IT or technical-based background? So, your program might be paying 2 to 3 times as much for somebody who has 1/10 the technical experience to do these required responsibilities, right? So, think about it again like this. Simulation is running right now in your simulation lab space. You're there. What question is more important for the SimTech to know the answer to? For the simulation technology specialist to know the answer to? What does a sudden drop in blood pressure indicate in a geriatric case? Or why is the microphone not working and the computer making a horrible beeping noise, right? So I am really surprised still to this day that I receive job descriptions from programs around the world. Let's just take, say, for example, nursing programs from around the world that are engaging in simulation for the first time with regards to their investment into the new support person from the technical staff side of things. And so, maybe they have 16 clinical nurse faculty on their program. They send me their job resume for review and they say, Lance, can you take a look at this? And I am still surprised to this day to see that they are looking for a master's prepared or BSN prepared nurse to be a simulation technology specialist, right? And so is that not really going out there and adding additional clinical knowledge to the program that already exists within the clinical faculty that are a part of your simulation program already? What you really need is technical experience to expand the availability of knowledge and experiences within the program, because you already have people that have the clinical knowledge. What you don't have is someone that has an expertise in the technical knowledge, which can blend with that clinical knowledge to best serve your simulation-based program. right? So there's this 80-20 rule. Some programs think that they can get away without needing ongoing technical support. A short story for you, a IT director of a program in Virginia called me a few years back ago and suggested that, hey Lance, I've been running with this simulation program for a year now. The past 6 months, we had just gotten the Sim Center up. After the first 6 months, we launched, and so we've been running for 6 months. I'm not a part of the nursing department and allied health department. I'm a part of the IT department, and the demands for technical support, it just seems like we've gotten 80% of the things accomplished in the first 6 months. And he said, but that last 20%, and I could finish his sentence for him, I said, it just never goes away, right? And so all of us know, including administrators, have direct experience that technology does not always just do exactly what we want it to do when we want it to do it, that it's finicky, that there are issues, challenges, updates, new technologies, repairs, maintenance, and new installations that require somebody who understands how technology works and is passionate about technology in a regular and ongoing way to be able to address those things and make them, in a sense, preventative. An ounce of prevention worth a pound of cure, preventative as opposed to fixing things after the fact, right? So the reality is technology is a part of simulation, and technology is going to be requiring support, and so simulation through transitory properties is going to require technical support, right? So how do you start to get to a place where you're able to convey to your administrators what needs to happen for your program to be able to be successful? So again, the first thing you need to do after you've looked at outbound and external groups that might match your own and considered from internally, you need to go deeper dive into, from here on forward, starting to keep track of the data, right? So the number of simulations that are taking place, what types, what rooms, what staff are required for those simulations, including prep time and teardown time, maintenance and update times for all the equipment that is being utilized on a regular basis. So who, what, why, when, and how, and where is all crucial information to be able to keep a record for, including, and most importantly, staff logs, right? So what in each hour is your simulation staff at this current level of staff doing? What are they doing? How often do they have to do maintenance and updates? How long does prep time and teardown time? How many staff are doing what in what rooms for what learners and what areas? And of course, rooms, you might want to create two charts for them, a regular one and a weighted one. So at the CSCLV, what we did was we said that classrooms were rated at a 1 because they did not require any technical support person outside of the just being available in case there was an issue. And even then, we had a video on how to use the Lectern GUI systems for AV for those classrooms, as well as we had a book there, a manual that explained how to utilize the system. So if clinical faculty, and we were supported by the deans for this, if the clinical faculty called and said, we can't get the Lectern to turn on, our technical staff person was allowed to say, did you read the manual and did you watch the video? And if the person said no, then they said, I'm sorry, but you need to do that before. And the dean supported us because we had a lot of different educational engagements taking place across the center. And for our key technical support staff person to be running down to a classroom just to turn on the Lectern was not an acceptable use of times. And the deans knew this, and so they supported us with regards to making those requirements. But a classroom would be weighted like a 1 because more than likely would not require any technical support. A 1.5 would be something like a clinical skills lab room or workstation with task trainers where there was setup and teardown time required, and maybe supplies, or maybe some questions might pop up throughout the day for those clinical training procedures. But that was unlike a simulation, high-fidelity simulation lab room, which we would weight at a 2 because it required a technical staff support person to be on call, ready and available nearby, either operating the mannequin or being prepared for any issues that might come up, and required, of course, simulation to be teared down and changed over during the actual process and engagement throughout the day, right? So that's how we would weight that. And so that we had information on what was going on in the center, who was doing what, how long it took each person to do all those things that were taking place, right? All this information is super important because we need this to be able to start making the case, right? And then we need to start considering our administrator's perspective, right? So what looks like a 6 to us is a 9 to them. So from our perspective, maybe we're overworked, underpaid, unsupported. But from your administrator's perspective, they're understaffed. They're dealing with budget cuts and they're overwhelmed, right? And so just even starting to think about the world from an administrator's perspective gives you an opportunity to start to frame the engagement in a way that you start to look at the world from their perspective, speak to them in their language, and meet their goals, needs, and expectations, solve their pain points, which ultimately may solve your own, but in a way that you can communicate to them in a way that they're going to be able to better understand what they can do, what their opportunity is to make a big change to improve their life professionally in this space, right? And so let me give you a secret as a simulation center director. Budget plus performance equaled return on investment, and that's how I was graded in terms of my performance, right? How was the performance of the program? What was it able to accomplish with what funds? That was our return on investment, and that's what I was graded on by my deans and my supervisors with regards to my role as an administrator of a simulation director, simulation center director, right? And so knowing that is a really key insight to think and to be able to speak and to be able to address and provide solutions for your administrator, because it's really not, at the end of the day, not about your problems, it's about their problems. And the more that you can understand and work with that, the more you'll be able to leverage what they are experiencing to the advantage of your simulation program, right? And so here's where we get into something like an elevator pitch. These are key opportunities where you might meet an administrator's administrator walking through the hospital halls, and you just get in that elevator. It's called an elevator pitch because you have 30 seconds in that elevator to explain to somebody an idea that captures their attention, that sets you up for a follow-up meeting, right? And this should always focus on what they get. What they get, what is their opportunity here? It's not about what your needs are and what your problems are. It's about what solutions you can provide them with regards to what their problems are and what their needs are. So let's try this on for a pitch and just see how this sounds with regards to something that you might say to a hospital C-suite executive when you were in an elevator for 30 seconds. Hey, would you have some time next week for me to share an idea on how we can improve utilization of simulation by 30% in just 6 months while generating $25,000 in additional income? I'm listening. So that right there, right, provides an opportunity for your administrator to increase performance, increase budget, and do both in a way that returns on investment for the program in a really great way, right? So very simple, very much to the point. Didn't take even 30 seconds to say that speech. Perks up their attention. So yeah, that's something. Both of those, all of that sounds great to me. Let's do a meeting. Let's talk about this. What are ways that we can do these types of things, right? And so again, now you've caught their attention because you've met something that hits their needs, and you can go forward from there, right? So how do we start to think about ways that we might be able to do these things that sound like perhaps they are just too good to be true, Lance? Tell me more. Well, let's start with the concept of volunteers and student workers, right? These individuals are easier to find, hire, and afford, right? So at the Clinical Simulation Center of Las Vegas, we worked with the local United Way. We filled out an application with them. We met with them, and we said to them, hey, if you end up getting any volunteers that come to your nationally recognized volunteer center that want to work with technology or healthcare, adult education, with the local educational community training or the university, send them our way. We're a perfect fit for those types of individuals. And so we would get people through the United Way that wanted to come and volunteer. And so sometimes we had a volunteer that was a couple hours a week. One gentleman that came to us through United Way worked every single Thursday for all 3 years that I was there and beyond, had done quite well in the stock market, and just wanted to give back to the community and do something that was felt like he got out of the house and he had a chance to help healthcare, education, and the university. So 8 hours a day, 8 hour days, 52 weeks out of the year almost, almost like an employee volunteer that just wanted to support the program for years and years and years, right? So now you have a way that you can show increased ROI because you free up higher paid staff that are specialized and able to do higher things, right? So that gives them more time, greater function, and a higher ROI, right? Because if your team is able to bring on just each department is able to bring on 2 volunteers that are able to help them throughout the week, that frees them up to focus on issues that require their higher level of understanding, experience, and knowledge to be able to perform. Now they can do more of these things. And likewise, student workers, just like volunteers, need to be interviewed, need to go through an official process, need to be really vetted, but provide for individuals that are at a very low cost, don't usually have the ability to require benefits in terms of a cost. So it's basically just an hourly rate. They can't usually work 40 hours a week. They can only do 20. So in terms of their hours, they might be similar to a volunteer, but they're more dedicated because they show up consistently and they are, obviously more required to be there. But they enable, similarly, your higher end administrative teams, educator teams, and technical teams to have more time to function on the things that require their level of specialty. That means greater function and a higher ROI. So if we can just build out some support structures, of course, we need to then start, again, going back to all the way here, keeping that data, right? So now the before and after pictures from when we are here and here can start to be utilized to demonstrate to our administrators with regards to the opportunities of increasing staff in a very affordable or no-cost way that enables us to grow the program in a much more effective manner, right? And so once we've demonstrated it from there, from volunteers and student workers, we can focus on slightly more opportunities with bigger investments for more support, right? So, an example, how do we get to the thing where we bring in $25,000 in 6 months? Well, if we could offer the simulation center to some external providers, not in a massive way, just a limited scope project with either the local hospital for ATLS training or the local VA for one simulation and learning experience a month, or with a EMS group or other groups in the area that need clinical training space in a highly specialized way that you've already made the program investment for. You take that revenue and you use that revenue to hire the part-time staff person to enable your higher end people to help support the development of that program. So use those winnings to reinvest back into the program, not only to support the development of that particular program, but to hire an additional person to support your own program's primary objectives as primary learners. So at the CSCLV, this is exactly what we did. We started with 5 staff. By the time I left 3 years later, we had 11. We were about to hire a 12th. We had several volunteers, as I said, some that came every single week. We had student workers. We started to hire part-time LOAs, part-time person who was previously a volunteer. Then we hired as a part-time LOA, letter of appointment without benefits for a 1-year contract to support external-based programs. So we first started working with an ATLS group through the hospital. We stored their equipment, which was a big help to them because they were paying to store their equipment somewhere else. And also we provided the training space and one support person who then also worked for us throughout the week with some of the revenue that we gained. And then we started with small projects and it built up to larger projects where we ended up working with the VA and supporting them with clinical-based training for their new hospital open back at that time, utilizing some of those funds to support our own growth, which then enabled our higher-end staff to be able to do more of the things that they needed to do more. So the other opportunity that came to us to be able to hire more staff is when one of the deans came to us and said, hey, we are expanding our programs. We're taking on an extra cohort. We need to start doing educational trainings in nights during the week and on weekends. And I said simply, well, we got 2 problems with that. The first is, I'm happy to do it, but I got 2 problems with that. First is you didn't hire the professional staff that you have here with the expectations that they work night and weekends. And while they're professional staff and they're supposed to do their jobs, that is going to be a very tough sell to make for them to come in on a Saturday, right? Even if we give them Friday off or whatever that they want. So That's going to be challenging, but here's the thing. And this is when I slid that logbook over back to those deans and I said, that's fine. You want us to start doing nights and weekends. What do you want us to not do in order to do nights and weekends, right? Because here's how we're performing in terms of our range and scope of work that we're accomplishing now. So what do you want us to not do to be able to accomplish this new added workload? And they said, whoa, wait a minute. Well, we don't want to stop doing anything that we're doing. Okay, well then we're going to need to find some money to be able to support this program. And again, once we had that, we were able to secure the part-time LOA, right? So that person came in to just do this specialized program. It was an LOA, so a one-year contract, did not have benefits, was not a permanent hire. And from there, after, again, kept the data from that year and demonstrated that how much more the center could perform and do with just one part-time LOA, a few volunteers, a few student workers. And by the time we got to the next year, the deans were ready to hire that person for another year, this time an LOB, because you can only do an LOA for 1 year for one individual. So now we moved to an LOB, which is letter of appointment with benefits. So there was a slight increase. And by the third year, we were just like, let's hire this person full time because we get so much more performance out of the investments that we've already made. We've recouped this money 10 times over with regards to the external programs, the additional expanded cohort that we've brought in with, again, student generated funds there. This is so simple to see because we have the data from before, we have the data now. We can see how much more we're able to get done with regards to just these smaller hires that enable our, again, key staff to do what they do. And we grew from there. Continued that across all the different domains, whether that be surgery, standardized patient, clinical skills labs, or other new projects that were coming to the space, right? So one other really key important factor to think about, because I hear about this from time to time, a special kind of caveat, is that there are simulation programs out there where perhaps the nursing program is in the nursing program space, they pay all the operating expenses, but the medical school comes and utilizes it 3 times a month, where the nursing simulation teams have to operate these experiences because way back when the medical school donated a mannequin. Well, that can't continue, right? You want to be able to support this program. That mannequin has a limited time value, as we've suggested. Technology becomes obsolete. Everyone who wants to play in the sim space needs to pay. Pay to play, right? That is the record we're going to start spinning with regards to your simulation programs, because if someone is utilizing the space, they need to contribute to not only the initial cost, but the ongoing cost, which end up being far, far greater than the initial cost of the equipment, that shiny car. Its maintenance of that car is now going to be, toy car is now going to be a key factor to be able to continue to operate that program, right? So everyone who wants to engage in IP needs to tip the jar. So, what do you really want to look for when you're looking for a sim tech? A healthcare background is nice, but as we've kind of already covered, is and should not be necessary. Some healthcare experience is fantastic. If you look at number 3, ability to tell a story. That's why, biased as I may be from my AV film background, I think that filmmakers are great. If they understand technology really well, they understand how to tell a story, then that is very similar to what we do in simulation. We have a script, we have actors, we have background actors or confederates, we have sound effects, we have moulage, special effects, we've got lighting, we've got specialized equipment, we've got camera angles, we've got editing systems or debriefing systems. It's a lot of similarities there. And more than that, in Hollywood, the lighting department and the makeup department and the electrical department and the director department are all different unions, and they can only communicate within their union, but they need to work together for problems, but they need to work together to create a make-believe world where people are, walking around pretending to be someone else in somewhere else in some other time and place, and make it realistic. So in a sense, they're great communicators, and that's something that I think is really important to really recognize for your technical specialist. It's not just a passion for technology, but a way to communicate and teach computer technology. So how do you do that? Well, during your interview process, you bring in somebody from both the clinical faculty simulation perspective and also the technical perspective. You ask technical questions, and you make sure that the technical representative is able to confirm that those are the correct answers. But then you say, okay, to the interview subject, you say, please teach me what the answer is to this technical question. So now you can see, how do they convey concepts, high-end concepts of technology? Do they find a passion in being able to educate and share technology with people? Because your simulation program to succeed not only needs to operate technology, but you need to have a great relationship with that technology specialist, and they need to have a great relationship with the faculty. They need to be able to promote simulation, share how it works, and be excited about getting people to try it on, and not frustrated that people keep bothering them with regards to their technical issues, because that's what this job is, right? There is not going to be an end to the technical issues, and so this person should, again, an ounce of prevention, pick up that wheel and keep spinning it from the get-go in terms of, like, here's what you can do with simulation. Really be a voice for sharing what's going on in space. Is a desire to wake up and learn something new every day, and obviously a good personality fit with your current team. So on Healthy Simulation, if you go to the jobs page where you can list jobs, but you can also see the jobs that are available, so you can kind of get some ideas about the job descriptions. And then there's also several resources there, like the Ultimate Sim Tech Job Guide, as well as this resource and many others that are related to not only sim techs but simulation staff in terms of how to hire, where to hire, why to hire, etc. So definitely check out healthysimulation.com on the jobs page for that area there. So where can you find them? Well, as I said, healthysimulation.com, SimGhosts have for technical staff, Indeed, Simply Hired, higher ed jobs, and then, of course, within your own institutions or areas, IT, AV, computer science, emergency departments, the VA, students, you can, MD students, nursing, EMT, business students to help for your administration programs, coordination programs, and computer science and technology, right? So you can find student workers for every single one of those domains, and those are really great places to find these individuals. Obviously, it's going to be very hard to find somebody with simulation technology experience. So definitely want to consider that starting from a place where someone has a good subset and is a good communicator is a great place to start. And again, you can teach them the clinical things that they really need to know in order to understand what's happening in the simulation, but don't get bogged down by the thought that, well, they need to understand all the clinical principles to be able to do simulation. No, you need to understand all the clinical principles. Your team does. They need to be able to understand how that server works and which button they need to press next, right? So obviously there's free online resources from Healthy Simulation. It's got daily articles, bi-monthly newsletter, latest news, conference coverage, research articles, job listings, product demonstrations, and more. BehindTheSimCurtain.com is a great wiki resource from Cam McCowan that has some useful information there. And then there are free online resources, weekly blog posts, keynote recordings, and some webinars, links, and more. And then, of course, there's a subscription on SimGhosts, which for only $60 at the current price, for an annual subscription, you get access to a document database, a membership database, an ongoing forums discussion group from global technical conversations around the world, 300 recorded sessions, video recorded sessions from our previous 15 events around the world, as well as access to our course library, which is growing every month. So a lot of great resources there. So why does SimGhosts exist? Well, it's a research study was done recently, a few years back just now, which found the major roadblock to massive adoption of simulation is not access to the technology, but rather qualified technical staff. A really study by the National Association of Emergency Medical Service Educators, NAMSE, found that more than 30% of United States healthcare schools with a simulation technology cannot utilize the millions of dollars of gifted equipment because they do not have the training required to operate these devices, right? So SimGhosts has really grown and succeeded to multiple annual events all around the world because this was not just something that the Clinical Simulations Center of Las Vegas was dealing with, but all groups that are engaged in simulation are finding these issues, and that's why it was a pain point that the industry as a whole had, and that's why SimGhosts exists, to support these groups, to provide the technical training required by the individuals and institutions around the globe who are improving learning and patient safety outcomes through educating healthcare professionals via advanced simulated learning environments and technology. So we obviously have, as a nonprofit, we have a board of directors with specialists from a variety of different domains. We've had many board members over the years. We have a research team led by Rachel Bailey, who was the first one to complete the first research with regards to Simtex, working on upcoming research projects in this space. So they're both supporting any groups within and supporting technical specialists, because obviously research is not a major component, but we know that this is an important area to study and kind of consider in the near future, providing some leadership opportunities, as well as looking at research into career and tech burnout. We're also, as a group, working on an upcoming book to be published by Springer on, simulation operations manual of sorts, with regards to everything you can imagine. So that's going to be a really great resource. Look out for that soon. We also do surveys. So, for example, 2015, we found that 50% of the attendees to our event earned within $21 and $30 an hour. They had from a non-healthcare background, 25% came from IT. It was a smattering of other things after that, and the healthcare background was primarily nursing. 50% were part-time, 50% full-time. 80% were responsible for setting up and tearing down task trainers. Technology purchase decisions at that year was 75% either had shared to primary responsibility with regards to making technology-based purchase decisions. Again, somebody with a lot of tech experience should have some influence over those decisions. So it's both, from an administrative in terms of the budget, but also in terms of the clinical educator, in terms of the outcomes, should also have a component of technical review and technical expectations and integration opportunities. And look at the years worked here. Back in 2015, 30% less than a year, 30% 1 to 2 years, only 30% 3 to 5, and then it was even less beyond that, right? So really, this is still a very emerging professional community, which is, again, why SimGhost is so important to supporting the industry at this time. So 30% had degrees and 40% had bachelor's. And here's some survey results from 2018. Another area, overall education and training requirements. So what were the things that groups were looking for when they were looking for Simtex? You'll see that 17 and 15% required healthcare professionals. So 30% were requiring some type of healthcare background, very little technical experience, or just didn't know really what to ask for specifically. Required bachelor's degrees or associate's degrees to be able to be effective in the role. So there's a lot of learning that's going place from our surveys, from our research, from our books, our events, and our online resources, right? So reviewing all of that, knowing the domains over the past years, kind of exploring all these simulation programs, we've really seen what is necessary to help support on an ongoing basis simulation technology specialists. So again, unless you hire somebody who previously had a job in simulation, you're really going to need to think about training all these different domains: audiovisual systems, design, installation, operation, debugging, repair, IT, network, infrastructure management, upgrades, simulation mannequin programming by brand, hardware maintenance and repair as you can, learning management and inventory management systems, selection and manipulation, professional communication techniques, SBAR, just as basic, or anything up to team steps, career development, theatrical staging, rehearsing, and performing. Some Simtechs are required to also act the voice of the patient from time to time, or go in there and be Confederates. Are they able to do that properly so that you maintain realism? Media production and marketing techniques to help support in terms of orientation videos or other online media, social media aspects of your program to help get the word out about there. Trauma, pathological disease, moulage makeup to increase realism. Adult learning theories, simulation learning theories, just so they can understand the core concepts of what and why and how this is happening through the methodology. Best practices from the aviation simulation industry to know about what the history was before and where it's at now, as well as medical terminology, process, and pharmacology, obviously, which your clinical faculty should be able to support, as they are doing that anyway. So hands-on is the name of the game at SimGhost events. We really open up mannequins without voiding warranty for those for those brands that are open and available to that, to explore, how to do basic repairs or manipulations, change batteries, other types of things without voiding warranties. We get hands-on with moulage makeup. We use computers for IT server. We use Androids, Android technologies, Arduino technology, computers. Really, we bring sim trucks out. We really try to get hands-on, as we know, just like that in simulation or learning by doing, you're going to retain more of that knowledge. And of course, we're really about utilization, right? Utilization so that you can go back to your sim center the next week after attending a SimGhost event or becoming a subscriber and using the tools that you gain right then and there in your simulation space. So just a little bit about our history. We started in 2011. We thought we might get 30 attendees from the West Coast. We got 90 from all across the United States, including Alaska, Florida, Hawaii, and New York, and further, and Canada. We doubled in size in 2012. We made an official nonprofit 501c3 organization, and we've just grown from there. By the time we got to 2014, we were also starting to do international events around the world. 2015, 2016, Melbourne, Brisbane, Leeds, Chicago, London, Dubai, Paris, Singapore, and this year, 2018, was the largest events we've ever held in both Australia and the United States, with over 400 attendees in total and 3,000 website subscribers to our newsletter, as well as our subscriber base to some of our resources previously mentioned. So clearly had an impact in the industry and act as a resource both for starting, finding, and training simulation technology specialists in terms of networking opportunities and self-education, as well as expert education through vendors and leading groups. We're affiliated with all the major nonprofit organizations out there that support simulation around the world, and we're of course vendor neutral, as we know that many simulation programs engage with multiple different brands of systems, and so we need to find ways to integrate across both all those domains to capture data to be able to improve program outcomes. And so we work with all the leading vendors in the space to be able to provide our attendees with those courses that are necessary. So our 2019 event is at Florida International University. Very excited to be working with Henry Hanau and his team out there, July 30th to August 2nd in Miami. And we'll also be announcing a Singapore S3 with Sazam and Sing Health event for Q4 of 2019. So check the website for more details there about that. Of course, we get a lot of praise from the community. For us, it's really about supporting this professional career pathway, having a good time, networking with peers, learning from vendors and leading experts, the folks that we say have been doing this job for 10 years or more, which is just an ancient dinosaur when it comes to simulation technology operations. Amy Wise says everyone involved in operating simulation needs to be at SimGhost. So, we see administrators, IT specialists, C-suite executives, as well as technical staff, clinical staff come to SimGhost events to really better understand what is going on in the simulation lab technology. So, I'll end by saying that, the buck stops here. It stops with you. You have a perspective of what is necessary in the simulation space to be more successful. And sometimes it will rely on you to make the changes necessary by finding ways to communicate with your administrators, to convey to them the messages in a way that they can understand so that they can empower the simulation program, empower you, empower your team to do the things that are necessary to improve learning, training, and patient safety outcomes through simulation. So I think it's more than clear to me from the examples provided here, as well as the experiences that I've seen across simulation programs around the world, that you can grow and develop a simulation program with the right tools, the right understanding, the right pathway. But if you find that your administration is not open to these changes, even with all this this knowledge and experiences shared here, and taking a look at others and using the data, and they just don't want to support you and the program, then they are not going to be a great long-term professional career pathway, in my opinion. They're just not a group that really is invested in simulation in a way that's going to be meaningful in the long run, and that means that you need to make some considerations with regards to your time there. But at least you need to understand that if you can convey these messages in a way that then can be understood and appreciated by them, you can make these changes, but really it's on you. They're not seeing, they don't have the same experience that you have, and so you can make these changes, and I think it's worth the effort to try before throwing your hands or throwing your many hats out the window, as it were, right? So if you need to get in touch, it's simghost.org, healthysimulation.com. You can check out careersinhealthcare.com/education and training for how to become simulation specialists, either again educational, administrative, or technical. And you can always email me, Lance@healthysimulation.com. And thank you so much for watching.